No mai haere mai, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Debbie Tupu Whenua. Welcome everyone and greetings to all of you. My name's Debbie and I'm the pastor here at Te Awatere Baptist. We're going to remember and to celebrate and to mourn Mavis today. We're going to take our time and not rush. So take a big breath. There will be a time of open sharing later in the service if you have a few words to say. The bathrooms are out and down around past the kitchen if you need them. And after the service, the family would love you to stay and have a cuppa and a chat with them. So I'd like to ask Des to come up and read Revelations.
Thank you. Thank you for all coming. We got a few more here than we thought we were going to be able to make it. In 2008, Mavis and I were privileged to go to the island of Patmos. It's a little island, and it was there that the St. John, as he's called in the Bible, was prisoner because he was still preaching Christianity, and the Romans thought that at that stage it was not a good idea. So he was imprisoned in the cave there, I think it was about 89, and he was given the words to what we call the Book of Revelation. So I'm going to read some of that to you now. Revelation 21, which is the last chapter, starting at verses 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. Oh, the old order of things has passed away." And he who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." Then we'll skip through to verse 22. I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of the God gives its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by this light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor to it. On no day will its gates ever shut, for there will be no night there. The glory and the honor of the nations were brought into it. Nothing impure will enter into it, nor will anyone who does what is shameful or deceitful, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Thank you. I think your space was able to convey some noise, and you probably hear Mavis today on the organ up in heaven.
I've been thinking a lot about heaven this week, thinking of the wonderful reunion that will have been happening up there, and that gives me hope. Let's just pray. Loving Father, we come to you today with heavy hearts. Our loss is your gain. And we know there has been an amazing reunion in heaven. We know in our hearts that Mavis is in the best place, and now her body is whole. We thank you for creating her and for the part she played in our lives, for her cheekiness and her laughter, for her kindness and love, for the role model and teacher that she was to so many of us. Lord, today we ask for your comfort, especially for Des, as he farewells his soulmate, his best friend and his constant companion. We ask for your peace for Annette and Kevin and Andrew, and for Jan and Roxy and Missy. We ask the same for David and Stephen and Kelly, Blake and Laurie and Sophia and Kaya. And in the coming days, we ask that you would love them and care for them through us and others. And we ask that you will soften their grief. Amen. Now we're going to stand and sing the first hymn. I met Mavis in the year 2000 in June. We'd begun attending here to support the church with leading worship and Roger preaching. I know that the first time Roger preached, he told Des that he would be the pastor here, and Des said, "We'll see." But Mavis and I, we hit it off straight away. We had our love of craft, that we so quickly reinstated on the Monday night. Those were the best of nights. We talked about our families. We talked about craft and about our lives, and we sang. Catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it fade away. Pretty much every Monday night we sang that song. I got to know Mavis really well, and there were a few things that I especially loved. Mavis taught me so much about God and his love for us. Firstly, she showed faithfulness. Mavis was faithful to her husband and their marriage. She was faithful to her children. She only ever spoke with love about them. She was faithful to her commitments. She was faithful to this church. Imagine going to the same church for 63 years, the ups and the downs and the comings and the goings. Mavis was faithful to all of these things because she knew a faithful God. She was made in his image, and that was a characteristic that she got from him. Secondly, Mavis showed kindness and acceptance. She was kind to everyone. She was straight up and could give you a growling, but she was never mean. In fact, even when she couldn't talk, she could still give you a growling with her eyes. When I went there one day with a short sleeve dress on and she saw my tattoo, she gave me a growling with her eyes. She was kind to children. She was kind to those who could not hear. She was kind to those who were mentally, intellectually, developmentally, or physically different. She never judged. She just showed kindness. Mavis was kind to and accepting to all of these because she knew a kind, accepting God. She was made in his image, and that was a characteristic that she got from him. Next, she shared her creativity. And I'm sure if you're here today, then maybe you've had a card from her. She could take a piece of paper and turn it into an envelope, a card, a box, a bag, a Christmas ornament, a bird, and so much more. She made things beautiful. But of course, she never kept her creativity to herself. She shared it with everyone who wanted to be creative too. Mavis was creative to all of these because she knew a creative God. She was made in his image, and that was a characteristic that she got from him. Mavis showed patience. She showed patience to the children that she taught in Sunday school and at LLF. I wonder if there's anyone here that she taught in Sunday school. Yeah, a few, definitely. She showed patience to those she taught craft to, and some of us needed that more than most. Mavis was patient to all of these because she knew a patient God. She was made in his image, and that is a characteristic that she got from him. And lastly, Mavis showed love. Mavis loved Des. She loved Annette and Kevin and Andrew. She loved all of her family. She loved the people that she worked with, and she loved the church. She loved this church. I think mostly she loved God. And because he loved her so very much, she was able to share that. She was able to be that love, be creative, be kind and accepting, and be faithful because that was her God. I experienced all of these things through my relationship with Mavis, and I know that many of you will have as well. Mavis, I thank you for being such an integral part of my life and for being the wonderful role model and friend that you were. So we're now going to hear from Annette, the eulogy from Annette.
For those who don't know and haven't seen me for some years, I'm Annette and Mavis' daughter and proud to be. Mavis was born Wilma Ann Whitaker on the 4th of December 1937 in Auckland. At the age of 6 months, she was adopted by May and James Wildish, and the name Wilma was replaced by Mavis, something she appreciated later in life. They lived at St Heliers Bay, and she was raised as their only child. Mavis started at St Heliers Bay School in February 1943, as did a boy from up the road, Desmond Marett. She went on to attend Seddon Memorial Technical College in Wellesley Street, but left just before the school certificate exams to start work as an office worker in BLAM Paints. Later, she worked as a telephonist for A&T Plumbing. Mavis's faith was the foundation of her life. In 1948, she was baptised and shortly afterwards became a foundation member of the Glendowie Baptist Church. From primary school to technical college, at Glendowie Baptist Church Youth Group and Bible class, the lives of Mavis Wildish and Desmond Marett intertwined. On Mavis's 20th birthday, they announced their engagement and married on the 14th of March 1959. After their honeymoon, Mavis and Des moved into a new build in Stroud Road in Te South, the end of the earth, according to her mother. Mavis continued to work until the middle of 1961, and Annette was born later that year. In 1963, Kevin was born, and their family seemed complete, but a 2-bedroom house was not considered appropriate with a growing boy and girl. After lifting their house to provide more bedrooms, Mavis and Des decided they could add to their family, and Andrew was born in 1969. Mavis loved children. The Marett's place was alive with them in the school holidays. She also taught in Sunday school, as you've just heard, both at Glendowie Baptist and at Te Baptist churches. She was a leader in the Girls' Brigade, and she was involved in the Te Junior Citizens Group. In later years, it was her grandsons, David and Stephen, whom she loved to spend time with. And the birth of her great-granddaughter, Sophia, brought her great joy. In 1975, Mavis went back to work as a librarian in Carrington Hospital. Though reading wasn't her interest, she asked people returning the books what they thought of them and made recommendations based on that. Soon afterwards, she was given the opportunity to run the volunteer services at Carrington Hospital, and she and a good friend, Pat Smith, ran this service called Carrington Aid until the hospital closed. As the hospital closed, Mavis became involved in various support groups which sprang up around the area and was on several of the trusts which ran these organisations. Concern for a patient led Mavis to learn sign language from Edna Garner. Her plan backfired a bit, as the patient didn't understand sign language, but it did lead to her involvement with the Auckland Deaf Christian Fellowship, of which she was a life member. With the change in legislation and after the death of her parents, Mavis decided to get her original birth certificate and went in search of her birth family. A bit of blind faith and a stroke of luck made the search simple, and she added 2 half-sisters, 2 half-brothers, and a sister to her family. Mavis liked to travel. She explored New Zealand, Australia and the Pacific Islands, the UK and Europe. Itineraries were often planned to include visits to family and friends, and she always came home with wonderful memories and stories. Mavis was a giver. She gave her time, her talents, her patience and herself. Being musical and having learned to play the piano as a child, she would play when needed, and she sang in choirs. She was a creative crafter. And from school holiday fun to knitting and sewing for others, to providing craft activities for the many groups she supported, She shared what she had learned. She was a good listener, from befriending people who needed a listening ear to advocating for those who needed support. She was there. Mavis didn't look for reward, but she was honoured to be recognised for her dedication to the patients at Carrington with the Queen's Service Medal in the 2002 New Year's Awards. This was presented to her at Government House by the Governor-General, Dame Sylvia Cartwright. As a family, we were all proud of that in their photos with her today. Mavis didn't usually let challenges stop her from doing, or at least trying, what she wanted to do. After all, wearing a built-up shoe as a child didn't stop her from being good at sport. But her stroke in 2016 stopped her in her tracks. The social butterfly that loved chatting with friends and family struggled to speak. The active senior citizen of the gym found herself confined to a chair. And the avid crafter and painter could only use her left hand. But still, she smiled for visitors. She took part in the activities at Arran Court Rest Home, where she lived her last 6 years, and crafted with the help of friends and family. On the 14th of October, Mavis had given all that she had to give and slipped away peacefully as promised into the arms of her Lord. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette. You did very well. Let's stand and sing the Lord was Russian. like to ask Kevin and Andrew and Stephen to come now, and they're going to share some of their family memories. And then we'll watch the slideshow of Mavis.
Welcome everybody. Thank you for attending Mum's Memorial today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kevin Marett, the middle son. Some may say that the middle one's always the one that's left out. But anyway, there was a lot of love to give. I've got a few words to read. It's a little bit long. I apologise for that in advance, but I'll do my best to get through, and I'll try and speak a little bit slower. Mavis and Des, Mum and Dad, as Annette mentioned in Mum's eulogy, they met in primary school, and over their years, their friendship grew, turning into a romance and a love that would stand the test of time. Their love for each other, their tight bond and commitment could only be broken by Mum being called to heaven. However, in the early days, as romance between Mavis and Des blossomed, Dad, being the witty, dry sense of humour and quite factual man, said something to Mavis that threatened to derail everything, meaning that my siblings, myself, and subsequent generations wouldn't be here today. With a straight, matter-of-fact expression, Dad said to Mavis, "Did you know my mother was a man before she was married?" Mavis was shocked. She had heard of such things spoken in the shadows and back rooms. Mum, thinking there was something very wrong or at least peculiar with these Maretts, was ready to distance herself. As Mavis went quiet, Des, concerned that his wit had landed him in hot water, quickly reassured Mavis that his mother, Gladys Marett, had the maiden name Mann, spelt with two N's. A relieved Mavis quickly forgave Des, and here we are today. I must have started to enjoy Mum's desserts too much. Maybe became a little portly. As a youngster, I was enrolled in the juniors for a newly formed Te Atatu rugby club, whose club room was just down the road from home. I remember coming home after a home game completely covered in mud, only my eyes were visible. Mum saw me coming up the drive and quickly ushered me to the garden hose, where she did her best to clean the worst off before allowing me into the shower. By hosing me down, Mum joked that she was going to struggle to clean my rugby gear. As a youngster, I thought she was truly angry at me. At the next game, I ran around avoiding every puddle and patch of mud, returning home triumphantly clean. Mum looked at me saying, "You are clean," then asking, "Did you not play today?" I proudly said that I played, although we lost, but I avoided the mud. Mum laughed and explained that she wasn't telling me off for being muddy, and my enjoyment of the game was more important than my rugby kit. Having always searched for life's shortcuts, I married into a ready-made family, thus bypassing babies, infancy, and having zero nappy skills. At the time of meeting my now wife, Janice, Jan had already 3 teenage children, Kelly, Blake, and Laurie. Blake and Laurie are here today, but unfortunately, Kelly returned from a European holiday yesterday and contracted COVID somewhere on the way. So he cannot be here today. Kelly is extremely upset and sad that he can't participate in the service. When I started seeing Jan, Laurie was a young teenager, fiercely protective of her mum and their family life together. She was also wary of a stranger who obviously had intentions with her mum. I remember taking Laurie to meet Mum and Dad for the first time. The air was thick with tension, and I'm sure there were imaginary daggers coming from the back seat. However, as soon as Laurie met Mum, the tension vanished and she formed a tight bond and relationship with Mavis. The tension did return on the way home once we'd left our parents. It took a little bit longer for me to break through to Laurie and our relationship to flourish. Mum broke the ice. She accepted Jan and her family with unconditional love, and for that I'm truly grateful. With Mum's crafts, painting, multiple support groups she worked with, social groups she was involved in, family and the church, visiting Mum unannounced was like a box of chocolates. You were never sure what you were going to get or find. Speaking of chocolates, many years ago, Mum was passed a recipe for Christmas chocolate truffle balls. They quickly became a family favourite and sometimes something we all enjoyed. Once I left home and had a family of my own, Mavis would bring a box of these truffles at Christmas, and the love for them grew. Each year around November, we would return the empty truffle box to Mum, and at Christmas, Mum would proudly deliver it back full to the brim with truffles. The recipe had rum or brandy as optional ingredients. Mum, not being one for alcohol in her home, would sometimes leave it out. This led to me asking each November, Mum, do you have some rum? Do you need me to buy you some? Given means kind. I'm sure Mum hoped to pass her kindness on to her children. Maybe by giving me that name, she thought it would remind me of how I should live my life. But she went much further than that, than names and words. She led by example, displaying kindness throughout her life. Through this service, there's been a strong message of Mum's kindness and how she gave all of herself for others. She gave until she could give no more. As her stroke locked Mum inside her body, not able to speak her thoughts, and forced her to be the receiver and not the helper/giver that she was. I always thought that was the cruelest part of her life. Although maybe God needed to transition Mum from a giving person to a receiving person in preparation for her taking her to his kingdom. Mum's finally in peace. While Mum was locked inside herself, Dad started to pull back from some of his outreach activities and focused on being with Mum as much as he could. And over time, he moved into Aaron Court, taking up residence in the room next to Mum, allowing him to spend more time and help Mum with the time she had left. Dad spent countless hours at Mum's bedside in her final days. I know Mum's passing will leave a huge hole in Dad's life. I asked friends, family, and those who have been touched by Mum and Dad to help Des in the coming days, months and years so that he can continue the legacy of he and Mum created. Thank you.
Hello to those who don't know me. My name is Stephen. I'm grandma's second grandson, and I'm David's first grandson. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my grandma. Seeing everyone sitting here today makes me so proud to be her grandson. I know she touched many people's lives, and I'm so privileged to have had such an amazing grandmother. She was truly the best grandmother a boy could have. She was kind, gentle, and wise. And I learned a lot from her. She taught me and my brother to have proper etiquette, and at the dinner table, my brother would get hassled more than I did, so I learned how to be more polite and well-mannered without getting told off very much. My grandma invested a lot of time and love into my upbringing. I have the fondest memories growing up with her. I remember especially looking forward to school holidays. We used to live across the road from Grandma and Granddad. It was awesome. We would walk across the road to my grandparents' house, and she would always have us partake in such interesting activities, such as playing board games at the table. Our favourite game was Rummy Cup. I'd give so much to be able to play with her again. We would go sightseeing at places I'd never been before. Once we went to a chocolate factory and many more other places. But my favourite and our most frequented activity was mini golf. We would play at heaps of different mini golf courses near and far. She would always beat me with humility, but if I won, I would let it be known. Our times with Grandma were always adventurous. Every school holidays, we would go to Mission Bay and we would play mini golf at Mission Bay Golf Course. Afterwards, we would always go to Burger King. Grandma spoiled us with her time and love. We lost a part of our grandma when she had a stroke 6 years ago. It broke our hearts to see Grandma after her stroke, but I could still see the sparkle in her eye when we visited her at Erin Court. Just before she had a stroke, we had a family outing at Mission Bay Golf Course. And I'm so glad that my wife got to meet her over a game of mini golf. This was a special day that we will not forget. My grandmother was truly an angel, and every moment with her I will cherish forever. She taught me to be humble, patient, selfless, kind, and forgiving. I didn't really know how to live with these values when I was young and naive, but because I was naughty. But now I practice the values Grandma instilled in me every day. For that, I will be forever thankful. I'd also like to take this time to mention how amazing my grandfather Des has been to my grandmother and looking after her all this time. Grandma and Granddad's love for each other has always inspired me. It brings me peace to know my grandma is in heaven. Love you, Grandma, forever and always. Thank you for listening.
That's great. That's such a good job. Hey everyone. I haven't got anything prepared today. I just wanted to share my love for her. As Stephen just said, she was the most amazing grandmother we could have ever asked for. She taught us so much, and she gave us so much of her time, even though she was such a busy lady, as you all know. It was really hard to visit her after she had her stroke, but every time I was able to, I would take our daughter Sophia, and it was worth it every time, seeing that beaming smile every single time. And yeah, we never feared our grandmother, except for on the golf course. She was an amazing mini golfer. Yeah, thank you all for coming. It means the world to us. Yeah, have a great day.
Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now the weak say, I am strong. praise to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich because of what the Lord has done for us. And let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich because of what the Lord has done for us. Give my Jesus, my Savior. Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. My comfort, my shelter, tower of refuge and strength, every breath, oh, when I am, never cease to worship you. Shout to the Lord on the earth and sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Mountains come down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I love you, forever I stand. Nothing compares to the promise I nothing compares to the promise I have. Nothing compares to the promise I have in you. You were at the beginning, and with God the Lord Most High. Hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is, what a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. Nothing compares to it. What a beautiful name it is, the name of Jesus. They could not hold me, lived on before me. Silence the voice of sin and grave. The heavens are open, the ways of your glory. For you are raised to life again. We come to a time now of where we have an open time of sharing. So if any of you have something that you would like to share, a memory or something, anything, then please feel free to come up. Yes, you boys can come, but wait a minute. Just you come and stand down here.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jan, married to Kevin. And I'm going to read out something from our son Kelly, who couldn't be here today because he's got COVID. And he asked if I would read this back. He said, Mavis was such a beautiful person and dedicated much of her life to helping others. I have fond memories of spending frequent evenings at Strid Road, editing the skateboarding videos that my friends and I used to make. Mavis and Des were always so welcoming, and Mavis would always offer me food and drink. I remember one time she heard some of the music I was using in the video, and it may have had one or two swear words in it, but she didn't bat an eyelid and was always so tolerant and accepting of us all. Lastly, I think it's great that Annette has continued Mavis's craft making tradition. I cannot quite see Kevin or Andrew picking this up. And perhaps Mavis is up there now working on numerous cards and cross-stitch and other creations. Rest in peace, Mavis. I will really miss you. Much love, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Christopher Crowder, and for our 50th birthday, Mavis Marett got us a gift card. I can't remember how much she was generous, and I loved her. My name is William Crowder. Mavis Marett came to our 50th birthday at Valentine's, and I saw Mavis Marett and wrote to her a few years back, 2006, and in Whanga Bay. She's a lovely lady. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joanna. I lived in the backyard after Kevin. And Marco is my dog. And Mavis called him Barco because he was always barking. So I first met Des and Mavis, namely Mavis first, because I was a student at Carrington. And so I met Mavis in her role there, and also through Reverend Edna Garner. And Edna was teaching Mavis and Miriam and Crystal to use signed English for the songs, and Mavis always led us in Auckland Deaf Christian Fellowship in the songs. She did Bible school for the teenage people, and for the children she did the Bible study for the children. She also helped in all areas of the ministry for Christian Fellowship for Disabled, hence why she's a life member. I wrote a whole lot of things, but I'll forget that because I can't see. That's changing other glasses. Mavis loved having the dogs come to visit, and that was after Kevin's dog, Vinny, and Luke. That's right, Luke had a big hole in the fence from escaping one time.
Luke was thinking escape arts.
And she loved the dogs coming to Auckland Deaf Fellowship. And she was there longer than 3 of the leaders. There was Reverend Edna, we had a chaplain and a couple of other leaders, and then we had Reverend Sandra. And Mavis was an encouragement to so many people, always giving like we've already heard. Very special to me, like an honorary mum. My mum's here as well. I used to go to the art group with Mavis when she was retired. I couldn't keep up with that. I couldn't keep up with a lot of the things. I'm patient, but not as patient as Mavis was with her craft. She'd persevere and make amazing art, paintings, needlework, and the cards. Some of the cards were made into shoes and had a crunchy bar or 3 in them. Mavis was a real inspiration. She'd go to the gym, but then when we were home or on our way home, we'd go and have something nice and sweet. We often had chats at the clothesline, and Mavis would bring my washing in if the weather was turning, and I'd do the same for her. Sometimes Des would think, Mavis has been a while, where is she? She'd be either talking next door at the flat or talking with the neighbours across the fence, where I'd often join in too. I think I met Mavis maybe even earlier than that through Christian Ministries with Disabled, or Christian Fellowship with Disabled as it was back then. And I can't remember what year, Des, but my parents lived at 15 Strid Road before I moved to 51 Strid Road in the back. And so this envelope or package arrived, and it was actually some aeroplane tickets, but it was meant for 51 Strid Road. So they were lucky to get their tickets to fly out to the UK. And I would often hear stories from Mavis of their travels and look at the photos. We shared interests like photos, taking photographs, putting them in albums, sharing times with people. A real role model to so many people, and teaching us things about the Bible that we maybe didn't understand, or showing us the good way to live. And Mavis made the most of her life. And even after her stroke, seeing Des's dedication and the families. And sometimes we weren't sure if Mavis was understanding us, but when Barbara would join me, we'd sign to Mavis as well as speak, and her face would light up and smile. Sammy at the front there, that's the teddy. I think a lot of the time Mavis had things passed to her to then wash and re-clean and sort them out for other people to pass them on. Des was very understanding because it wasn't only Mavis. Other people would come and drop things off, and Joanna did the same. So the flat and the garage and upstairs, or downstairs really, looked very busy places. But often there was baby washing on the line, and I think, there's a lot of baby washing there. But I know that she really enjoyed having the grandsons and the great-granddaughters. I remember for my 40th birthday was not long after my stepdad died, and David and Stephen, I think, were about 10 and 9, something like that. And so we went to McDonald's and had a children's birthday party with Des and Mavis. And we made ice creams, well, served, soft served. I remember going to mini golf with you a couple of times as well. Thank you, Mavis and Des, for sharing your lives with us. There's one song that I was given just not long before Mavis passed away. I do have to swap my glasses for this. I'm not going to sing it because you'll be out the door. But it says, Jesus loves me, this I know, though my hair is white as snow. Aside from that, Mavis's brother was named Snow. Though my sight is growing dim, still he bids me trust in him. Yes, Jesus loves me, though my steps are oh so slow. With my hands in his I will go. Oh, through life, let come what may, he'll be there to lead the way. Yes, Jesus loves me. And I believe that Mavis is in that room preparing for us, making sandwiches, getting everything nice for us to show us the way. Thank you. Thank you, Mavis.
Hello, that's David. Right. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kirsty, Joyce Francis's daughter. Unfortunately, Mum can't be here today as she's in hospital, but she wanted me to share the following with you. To Des and family, I praise the Lord for Mavis, for her love, her life, for her faithfulness and her friendship, for all that she did in so many ways, for so many organisations she was involved with over the years. She was just so good at using her many and varied skills and was always patient, kind and helpful. I thank God too for all the many years she taught Bible in schools. In fact, it was Mavis who introduced me to Bible in schools and came with me for my very first ever lesson. I'm also grateful for the many years she drove the van for Christian Care Centre as well as being in charge of the craft table. Her contribution was immense. God bless and comfort your family and especially you, Des. With love and deep sympathy from Joyce.
Hi, I think many of you won't know me. I'm Reverend Sandra Gibbons. And I remember on the 6th of February 2000, I walked in for an interview to become the chaplain of the Deaf Christian Fellowship. Stood up there, signing away with Mavis. Her signs were beautiful. I was in awe of what she did. And I was always in awe of what Mavis did. And I want to just say on behalf of the whole of the Deaf Christian Fellowship, a huge thank you to Mavis for everything she gifted us, for giving us so much of her life. And also a big thank you to Des too. Without those two people, the Deaf Fellowship could never have continued. Mavis, you gave us so much of everything that you are, and we're so grateful to you. May God bless you and keep you. And yes, obviously she's out there crafting away and caring for everyone. Bless you, Mavis. We'll see you again. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Russell. I knew Mavis relatively little, so I got something valuable to say to you today. I was at the church, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, somewhere about 10 years ago on something like that. I was involved with the Christian Fellowship and I drove a van. I saw Mavis doing various things, saw her craft, I saw her helping, saw her in the kitchen, I saw her drying vans, and I knew how valuable she was and how useful. But I knew almost nothing about the totality of what she was. I knew almost nothing about her whole life. I come to the funeral today and I hear so much about a person that I never knew and I could have known. As I get to my advanced age, I go to more funerals. I've been to quite a few, and I've said something like this at the last few I've been to because it's always useful. I go there and I hear these amazing things about people's lives, about their capabilities, sometimes about their hardships. Some of you will know Mavis well, some of you will know what she's done, but I would guess that most of you here don't. My plea today, through Mavis and others, is don't come to funerals to understand people, to know people, know what they're like and what they've done. Somehow, and I don't know how, try and get to know people's lives in advance, try and dig a bit more, I don't know what it takes. But don't come to funerals to hear about the marvellous Mavis, which you only see the tip of the iceberg about. Try and find out in advance.
Hello, I'm trying to go. To see Mavis and Des and growing up and older. My heart and talking about in their hearts, talking about God, telling us about it. Me personally, Mavis would interpret and talk LinkedIn for the deaf people speaking in the fellowship. Very, very special. Mavis was amazing. Bless you. Thank you. That was scary, sorry.
Hello, this is Paul. Mavis used to be a friend to my dad's older sister, and used to go to school together. And when I first met Mavis back in the early 90s, when I used to come here for the evening service, and Mavis was asking me, ask your dad if he remembers me being Mavis Brimstone before she married Des. And Mavis used to do my van one when I went, because I was going to the care centre and 3 times during the 90s. Then I left there and started working at the workshop. And then I came back in August 2011. And when I found out that Mavis was doing the van one, and I had some good times with Mavis. Then one day when Des rang up and told my caregiver that her son Andrew was going to do the van one, and I just remember Andrew when he picked me up that time. And I got memories of Mavis, bit of a hard case she was, but I've gone well with her and Des. And I used to say some things when I play my record tapes or CDs. I say Des' name that sometimes some song like Trick of Time and all other songs. And always the other songs I used to say Des Marett, and that's, you know. I never forget them. Never forget those two. God, they're a good couple they are. Thank you a lot.
Hi, I'm Bethel, formerly McClimont, but now McDivitt. I grew up in this church, got married in this church, and Mavis was a part of my life for a very long time. She was also part of my engagement and marriage in 2010, and was part of the craft group and really enjoyed sharing that time with everybody.
I'm sure they had a great laugh with me falling over with joy one day. So definitely part of my life for a long time. Thank you.
When I returned to Auckland, and I'm Miriam Downey, but I was Miriam Matai when I came back, I started coming to this church and I've met Mavis. But what really impressed me was seeing the Girls Brigade, and I've been involved with Girls Brigade for about 40 years now, and Mavis was a big part in influencing that. And I was involved in the 8th Waitaki, which was based in Te Rere Baptist Church, until it closed in December 1984. And then I moved to 13th Waitaki, which is at St Giles, and I'm still there. But Mavis had a real impact on our daughter, Sarah. Didn't want to come to church or go to Sunday school. She wanted with daddy and mummy in church. So when she was about 3, we brought her along and we took her to the house next door. She saw the open door and she zoomed in, and that was it. We never had any more problems with her staying in church with us. She really loved being with Mavis, and later Sarah and I actually were taking lessons in sign language from Mavis, and then Mavis was involved in the English learning classes, and I used to come along, and I was very, very keen on the craft side of things. Obviously, I wasn't needing to speak English, but I loved the craft things. And then she had classes of her own, and I also got involved in that. But she was such an inspiration because her love for God was so deep, but she didn't keep it to herself. She passed on to other people. And we've got a lot to thank you for in the way that she shared that love with other people. So thank you.
I'd just like to say something. I don't think I can get up there, but I hope you can hear me. I'm Beverly Golding, and my husband, my late husband, and I remember with love and admiration our dear friend Mavis. Roll and I have known Mavis since our late teens through children's work and camps. And when we married, moved into our new home in Essex Street, Des and Mavis lived down the road in Strid Road. And we've been good friends ever since, and we attended Te Rere Baptist. Mavis used her many talents in Sunday school and Girls Brigade, as we've seen people talk about it. And Annie's her daughter completed many assignments and was awarded the Queen's Award, which is the highest honour in Girls Brigade. Mavis also served in the Care Centre and the Deaf Association, we've heard about, and she was honoured with the Queen's Service Medal. We remember too that Des and Mavis had a home group in their home, and Mavis had a special ability of caring for needy folk. And they both faithfully attended a prayer meeting in our house once a month, praying for the Ebenezer Fellowship work in India. What an amazing ability Mavis had doing beautiful craft work. And I was so blessed to receive each Christmas something new she had made with her hand, just handmade, and it went on the Christmas tree. Mavis was a treasure, a talented, caring person, a loss to us, but a gain to heaven. Thank you. Thanks to the family too.
Hello. I don't recognise too many faces here, but I'll introduce myself as Pastor Pete and maybe things will become a little bit more familiar. When I was posted here, we'll say posted, but I'm sure you remember the date better than I do. It was about 2005 till about 2007 as an associate pastor. When we arrived here, the door to Mavis and Des's house was wide open. My wife and Mavis became the firmest of friends. Let us say that when it comes to crafts, they've both been tarred with exactly the same brush. If you know what her house is like, and that she had whole rooms dedicated to crafts, I'm sure you'll be sympathetic towards me. The same thing falls within our place. The two spent untold time together doing crafts. We won't go there. Okay? But we couldn't have had a better inclusion in the church. It was fantastic. The two of us made us feel like family as much as the church did. But I think more than anything, having those two as friends in that time just helped cement us in a place that was unfamiliar because we weren't townies, even though we grew up here. And once I left here to another placement further north, and I mean right up north, Karen and Mavis were still solidly in touch with each other. We came down here doing work on houses for our children, and the two would meet up. It would be nothing for Mavis to arrive around for afternoon tea, and we would have a little bit of baking sitting there, but she would have all this craft stuff with her that would come into the house while I'm busy trying to work, fixing floors and everything else. The two of them are busy on what we had for a table. Her friendship was incredibly valuable. The time they spent together, I know Karen really cherished. And I'm here because there's no way she's going to stand here and say what it was like to be a friend of theirs. They were firm friends. They were always in contact. Des, you will miss her greatly, that we know. Anybody that knows them knows that there's a massive hole in his heart. And he has shown us what it is to be Christian and to be dedicated. Both of them showed great love. In fact, they made much of the possibility because our dates of our wedding anniversaries were so close together that we could even share wedding anniversaries together at this church. We did for one. Thank you, folks. Mavis, more than anything, thank you. I feel little pain at departing. I feel pain in the separation only. We know you're welcome in heaven. The door will be wide open for us and her arms wide open when we join her. I have every faith in that. Amen.
We could keep standing here and repeating how amazing Mavis was, and that wouldn't be a bad thing. I just want to share that I remember when Mavis was doing Little Lambs in the back room here, and they would start off with the big Sunday school, and then they went down to their room, and all the children would run down, and these are little 3-4-year-olds. They'd run down first, and they'd hide under the tables and chairs, and Mavis would come down after them, and she'd stand there at the door and say, "Where have all the children gone? Where are all the children?" And they'd jump out and surprise her. And every single week it was exactly the same. And every single week she got the biggest surprise. Truly loved by those children. I'd like to ask you now to stand for the committal. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose on earth, a time to be born and a time to die. Mavis, everything you have done has made a difference. Everyone you have loved remembers that love. Everything you have taught has remained. May these things be reflected in all of us as they are the legacy that you leave. So now God, we commit Mavis to you, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in the sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life. I'd like to ask the pallbearers if they would like to come forward while I do a blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. May you know you are his favourite. May you know that he gives you peace.
Peasant. Mavis Marett was a lovely lady. Thank you from Graham Taylor. It hasn't stopped.
Oh,
Who put it on like is at the funeral?
I'm not sure. They were, I think the funeral director, man in the black suit, was driving a big hearse. He would have organised it, or maybe the,
Huh? Debbie Petman.
yes, maybe she knows all about that.
Yes, I went online.
Go girls, right?
Yes. Then go all around the world.
Some people overseas, who are speaking overseas.
Yes.
Somebody can get around the world.
I'm famous.
Maybe you are.
You know?
Terry.
Terry who?
Terry Moss.
Is he from Oxford?
Yes.
Good name, Terry.
Terry.
Terry. Terry Moss. How old do you think that's Oxford?
Oh, I think it's quite new, maybe 4 years old. I would think something like that.
4 years old?
Yes. They are 10 and 8. I know. And I go to these things and like, I'm just, this year, I feel like it's a week and the wins. I'm not going to be honest. And it's real close, it's just one. It's just, and it's like, you did nothing, and you know, oh my gosh, I know, and then I go to these things.